Hi, this is Rifki Berger from Fun and Function, joining you to discuss self-regulation. When children are able to articulate and address their emotional and sensory needs, it's known as self-regulation. Self-regulation is related to executive functioning and is a critical part of being able to exhibit appropriate behaviors and being prepared to learn. Self-regulation relates to sensory processing. We are parents, teachers, and therapists with the expectation that eventually our children and students will need less of our help to meet their sensory needs and thrive in school, community, and life. In this video, we'll discuss how sensory processing impacts behavior and learning. We'll explore dysregulation, co-regulation, and self-regulation, and we'll demonstrate how to develop self-regulation in our students. Let's review. Self-regulation closely relates to executive function. As explained by Harvard Center for the Developing Child, executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. We use self-regulation to control our emotions and how we think about ourselves and the tasks we need to complete. In this way, we control our behavior and physical responses to different situations. In our children, it's often described in terms of impulse control, ability to transition, and readiness to learn. In our classrooms, children with self-regulation display appropriate classroom behavior and social interactions. In turn, they achieve higher scores in reading, vocabulary, and math. When children lack self-regulation skills, we may see actions or behaviors that we call a tantrum or a meltdown. If the cause of the behavior is to get attention or a particular toy, that's a tantrum, and we need to teach the child alternate methods of goal attainment. We need to teach the child strategies to manage their emotions and desires. Sensory processing also plays a role in self-regulation. When a child has sensory processing challenges, we may see behaviors very similar to a tantrum, but actually what's happening is a sensory meltdown. A sensory meltdown is not under a child's control. It's not a cognitive plan, so teaching alternate methods of goal attainment will not work. In a sensory meltdown, our nervous system is in a flight, flight, or freeze, and we're not able to control the meltdown. In a sensory meltdown, we need to help the child employ calming strategies, which will activate the calming portions of the brain. Depending on the circumstances and the child's age, we can understand that a tantrum and a meltdown is a situation that is not well controlled. To describe the situation, we may say that a child is in a state of dysregulation. If we assist the child to return to a more regulated state, we're providing co-regulation. When a child can recognize their own needs and make plans to respond to those needs, we say that the child has self-regulation skills. Children don't always recognize their sensory needs. For example, a tired child could just go to sleep. But if the child doesn't recognize their own need for sleep and starts to act up, we as adults will detect his need and lead him to bed. If a child with sensory processing disorder does not recognize the need to take a break and address his sensory needs, it's up to an educated teacher or parent, like you, to be a sensory detective and guide the child to use tools to address his sensory need. Children in dysregulated states display behaviors that challenge our ability to continue teaching and provide for the needs of the other children. Let's meet Tristan. Tristan has a large cup for tactile input. He's always touching everything on other people's desks. He fiddles with the long hair of the girl in front of him and seeks out textures by rubbing his arms on the cement block hallway walls. When Tristan isn't able to get sensory input, he isn't able to complete his classwork. If the math lessons has manipulatives, such as foam pieces or small blocks, or the hands-on science lessons includes putty or water, he's too preoccupied with touching the different items to actually focus on what needs to be done. When we understand a child's needs related to sensory processing and become effective sensory detectives, we have a super detective power and can suggest activities, sensory tools, or provide sensory spaces and experiences to address the child's dysregulated behavior. Let's try giving Tristan tactile input throughout the day. He can keep an anemone fidget inside his desk or clip a fidget to his belt loop. We can prompt him to take a few minutes to explore the textures of his fidgets or use a sensory brush. This will satisfy his need for tactile input. We then educate and teach the child about the sensory needs we observed to help the child develop self-regulation skills. Tristan can learn to use his tactile sensory tools before hands-on lessons or throughout the day. Children develop self-regulation through everyday experiences. Teachers and parents help children learn by modeling how we meet our sensory needs during the day. For example, we can say to a child, "I'm sleepy, come do some jumping jacks with me to wake up." After a busy lunch period, we might say, "Whoa, I feel so overwhelmed after such a busy, noisy lunch period. Let's do some deep breathing and yoga together before starting math." After a challenging science test, we might say, "That was intense. We all focused for so long. Let's turn on some jazz and take out our coordination scarves and move our bodies to the music." Or we can use scaffolding. I love that term. It means adding outside support which you gradually remove. You can say to a child, "Gee, concentrating on homework is hard. Do you want to set a timer and take breaks?" If we're explaining an art activity and recognize that Kara, who has a small cup in response to tactile sensations, is becoming stressed out at this activity, we might give her an option to use popsicle sticks to spread the glue so that the focus is on learning and not on the sensory processing challenge. Kara might be working with an OT already to address sensory defensiveness and may eventually be able to touch glue without overreacting. In the classroom, we use our detective skills and promote self-regulation, suggesting that she look for other tools when she doesn't want to touch something. With the guidance of her OT, we might also gently expose Kara to different textures throughout the school day to reduce her tactile sensitivity, soft putties, sensory sand, or fidget keychain balls. Okay, sensory detectives, let's look in on John and see what we observe and determine how we can help him. He is often frustrated by sensory overload in the classroom. When he comes into class after a few minutes, we can see he's not paying attention. He's rocking back and forth with his hands over his ears. This behavior tells a good sensory detective that John can't handle this level of noise during free play. His rocking is an attempt to calm the anxiety he's experiencing because the noise cup has had enough. Without intervention, John may have a sensory meltdown. However, we may ward off a meltdown with intervention. We might begin by offering him headphones. It helps reduce the noise level, but right now it's not enough because his sensory system has already been hijacked and is in high alert. What can we do to make the environment calmer? We can shut off the lights and engage the other children in a calmer, seated activity. Although we would not want to force John into the classroom sensory corner, we can bring an item like the sequin cushion over to him and invite him to sit in the classroom rocking chair since he finds rocking to be a calming activity. Once he's calmed down enough so that we can engage with him, we can suggest he move to the calmer place like the sensory corner. Since we've detected noise bothers John, we can teach him to get the noise-canceling headphones on his own before free playtime. By being a sensory detective, we were able to determine that bringing him the headphones would help him. This is called co-regulation. It's a reactive response. When we've taught John to get the headphones before free play, this is a preventative response, and we've taught him self-regulation. If we can teach him to get the headphones the minute he walks into the classroom, we've changed the day for him. The same way, if we provide movement breaks for the whole class, we may prevent decreased attention and behavior issues that result from sitting for too long. We all have sensory needs, and we need flexibility in classroom activities, classroom seating, and environmental conditions to function at an optimal level. If a child needs additional input, sending them out of the class on an errand may also be a preventative way to help with regulation. A favorite take-a-break activity can be to carry books into the office or into another classroom. But remember, to model good regulation to our kids, we need to have good regulation ourselves. If you're hungry or tired, you might not have the patience or stamina to model good regulation to others, so make sure to take good care of you. We've given examples of how to guide a child from dysregulation to co-regulation to self-regulation using modeling and scaffolding. You first note the behavior that you see and reflect on which possible sensory disorder is causing the issue. When we've identified the sensory need and observed some success with the tool or method we're trying, then we can teach the student about his sensory needs. We can promote self-regulation strategies by making sensory tools and spaces available. We also don't need to do this alone. Sometimes an outside observer from your educational team can see the issue with a fresh perspective. For complicated sensory issues, we can reach out to an occupational therapist. Now that you have gotten the hang of it, explore other situations that you can co-regulate a struggling student. On the playground, In social situations, our children are constantly learning, and much of the learning that they do in school has nothing to do with academics. School is also the kiln in which self-regulation will play out, helping children to form their self-image and self-esteem. We are the guides helping children learn the tools that they will use in their school years and beyond.